No, I just watched Truman Show randomly the other night,
Such a good movie.
which I hadn't seen in a long time, and just Laura Linney constantly like talking to the invisible cameras. Just was like, I got to do that all the time now.
Yeah.
When you have Waterloo, sparkling water, almost tastes like happiness. Almost. Great. Waterloo, sparkling water. Delicious, fresh, and only a little more expensive than LaCroix. That freshens your palate. Waterloo. I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep saying Waterloo.
Yeah,
every 5 minutes.
We need the sponsorship. You think they'll call?
Waterloo! Drink it! All right. Should we talk about a film?
I don't know. Do you want to? What do you want to talk about?
I guess. It's your movie, Keith.
It's my movie.
It's your movie. This is your redo.
Yes, you're right. This is my new. Don't give me that face. This is my new number 5 favorite film of all time. This film, I have loved this film since the day it came out. 1996, Kingpin.
From the idiots that brung you Dumb and Dumber.
You wouldn't happen to have a Phillips head screwdriver, would you?
He's the man with the rubber hand.
Creepy.
He's the Amish kid with the golden arm.
Whoa!
Kingpin.
It's an amazing film. This is exactly my cup of tea. To disappoint one of our biggest fans, Richie, who has seen so much growth out of me lately with the eclectic films I've been commenting on and watching and digesting and just analyzing so well.
Yeah.
To my credit.
Yeah, truly.
This takes me back to my childhood. 1996, this film comes out. And I think it is immensely funny. And it's always been, when people ask me, hey, what are some of your favorite films? Obviously, Dumb and Dumber usually ends the conversation and they just leave. But if they stick around...
These 20-second conversations that you have with strangers about films.
I don't get to Dumber and they're just like, we'll see you later. We'll talk. No? Okay.
Yeah.
But if they stick around, Kingpin is right there and has always been right there. So I'm happy to reassess and include it. How much do you hate this film? Because I can only imagine that you hate how stupid and unintelligent and not funny and not artsy or whatever you want to say, you pretentious prick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I hate on Dumb and Dumber so much and all that other stuff. No, Kingpin is totally good. It's very, very funny. I like it a lot. I think it's it's just fun to make fun of you for your top 10 favorite films. That 2 Farrelly Brothers movies are in your top 5 favorite films of all time is really priceless. But Kingpin itself, as a standalone film, is good. And I think it's such an interesting movie because it's sort of, I don't know, it sort of was like the forgotten entry in some ways comparatively to Dumb and Dumber, and There's Something About Mary of like the 90s, the Farrelly Brothers kings of comedy of those mid to latter 90s. And I feel like Kingpin was never, I don't know, like Dumb and Dumber was a huge commercial success, and There's Something About Mary also was, but was also kind of critically appreciated more. Yeah. But Kingpin was always sort of like the stepchild that was like, people liked it, but it wasn't either, I think, a big hit, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it was a big hit, and it wasn't critically loved.
Definitely not critically loved.
But I think that's a miss because it's very funny. There's things I can nitpick, and I will. One glaring thing that I would change, but
this movie's perfect.
All in all, it's very funny. It's a very funny movie.
It's such an enjoyable film. That's like, you want to nitpick it and comedy and blah blah blah. It's not funny. It's low class, whatever, or low brow. But it's just I just think it's at its worst, it's just enjoyable. Like, that's to me the worst version of this film. I don't think anyone should dislike it. I don't think you should dislike it.
What I thought was interesting with reading some of the reviews from when it came out is that there were several reviews that mentioned that they thought it was mean-spirited. And I thought that was interesting. Like I think I disagree with that generally, but maybe it is sort of it's kind of a dark comedy, which is different tonally than I mean. There's something about Mary is kind of dark too, but it's a little darker like than an overt funny comedy, and I think that probably throws people off a little bit.
It's first of all, I'm going to take a step back. Who is it mean-spirited to? Like who is that in reference to? Who's taking offense to this film? What group? Amish people? Is that who takes offense to this?
No, I don't know. I don't know if it was, I didn't read into it in depth, but I just saw that in several reviews. It's like this mean-spirited humor. The comedy is mean-spirited, where it's like maybe it's just too insulting. I would imagine mostly towards Randy Quaid because people are, I don't know, taking advantage of him in some ways, but I don't know. I disagree. Like, I can't defend something I don't believe in.
No, I was just curious if there was an outline of who, like, what's so mean-spirited about it. You're right, it is darker, and that was actually what I was gonna say when I go into my analytical mode that fans just flock to. They love when I break down and dissect comedy to the nth degree. They love it. What I think, why I think this film is, yep, right, get a pad, yep, class is in session. Why I think this film is so funny, I was going to say, because of the setup, I really think this film works so well comedically. Because of those dark undertones that the film sets out on the onslaught of the film, when it begins, you're quickly immersed into like, this guy's gifted, and then all of that is stripped away from him in a really horrific way. The setup to this film, like I think most great comedy films are, it's a dramatic premise. And the comedy comes from that genuine, real, organic story, like authentic. Organic may not be the right way to say it, but authentic story. You could, again, just like Dumb and Dumber, could play it as drama. The guy gets his hand cut off from a gambling thing. Like it's a real strong dramatic premise, but they establish everything you need to know about this film, and these characters. They develop character and story really, really quickly and really, really efficiently. And I think the comedy would be worse if you lose all that stuff. Like, and I think most
for sure
a cheaper comedic film would be like, oh, let's just get to the funny stuff where Randy Quaid doesn't know what he's doing, and this fish out of water story, and that's where it loses. That's I think the difference between a really intelligent comedy and just something that's just trying to grab some cheap laughs. Is that darkness that we're talking about?
Falling for money. It's my only vice.
Here's your drink.
Oh, thanks, sugar.
No, I agree with that. I think I thought a lot about that. I don't want to give you any credit ever, but just you talking about that has made me watch comedies maybe a little differently, and I thought that a lot in this film as I watched it. I noticed. I think it's a hugely successful decision to kind of separate some characters from the really overt comedy. Like in the early scenes, Woody Harrelson's father is not ever played for laughs. Like he's played almost as like a cute, like family film character.
Yeah.
That's like, he's very genuine. And it's, there's chuckles here and there, like when little Woody jumps over the fence and falls and shit like that, which is very funny. But like, he's not, I think a lesser film would play him for laughs too. Like, how can we make the dad say a couple punchlines?
Yeah.
How can we? But that never happens. So that it gives it more weight, and there's real dread. Like I watched this movie a bunch of times over my life, so nothing new. But just on this recent rewatching, there's real dread when you remember that he's gonna get his hand stuck in that machine.
Yeah.
And like I was watching it with Monique, and she was like, no.
Yeah.
Like she remembers too. It's like, oh, this scene sucks. Like this scene is heavy, not sucks, but it sucks in a feeling way.
In a feeling way, yeah.
Like, and so that, like, to your point, the strength of the comedy, I think, comes from, there's like real stakes. There's real emotion here, even if it's just, sprinkled in throughout. you really are like, God damn, this guy goes on a journey.
Yeah.
And it's really important to build the comedy off of that.
The comedy films done right still have a heart to their story, still have a purpose to their story. Without that beginning stuff and those dramatic moments, when he is bowling, when he's on the rise and cleaning his act up and everyone leaves him, like there's some heft to that. Again, it's not Schindler's List. I'm not saying it's that deep, but that emotional sincerity is so important to comedy, I think. And this film and the Farrelly Brothers, I think, do it on par with any other comedic filmmakers. I would put them on par with a Judd Apatow.
Past tense.
They're coming
did
back.
It better.
They're coming back.
Are they?
They're coming back.
All right.
But their body of work, with the history of all of their films, I think encompass this heart.
Those 3 films that they made in the 90s are 3 of the best comedies kind of in history, right?
I mean, I would think so. These three films, Something About Mary, Kingpin, and Dumb and Dumber.
Like top 50 comedies of all time.
Yeah. So if you got 3 of the top 50, I don't care what you do. I honestly don't, like, you're cemented, in my opinion. With how difficult comedy is to make,
yeah,
you're gonna say you're gonna have 3 all-time greats, like.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So they win. You guys win forever. You could make plenty of Shallow Hal's.
Oh God, Shallow Hal.
Sorry.
What was it? Me, Myself, and Irene. That one was like okay.
That was pretty
That
good.
was like the okay one.
Yeah. But they've had some not so great
They
ones
lost
as
it.
well.
Besides the story and the heart and the emotion, I mean, what are things that you remember? Like, what's the first stuff that you remember when you think of Kingpin?
I think one of the funniest lines in the history of cinema is in this film, and I think what drew me to what was like this, I want to do this, is in this film, because I related to it so much at such a young age, and no one's gonna find this, maybe not no one, but when I tell you,
I feel like I know what you're gonna say.
Do you know what line it is?
I don't know. It's not one of the main characters.
Nope.
How's life? Taken forever?
Yep.
Hey, Herb, how's life?
Taken forever.
That line, the first time I heard it, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, I know it doesn't sound that complex, but like it blew young Keith's mind. Taken for it, because he that old
and
man
shaped your emotional direction for the rest of your life.
I said, this is the tonality I want all my films to be. I want the tone of every film to embody that line. How's life? Taken forever. The guy's hooked up to an oxygen tank. He's just waiting for death.
Smoking
a cigarette, waiting for his life to end. And that I couldn't say no to this film from that moment on. I just couldn't. I love that line so much, because you get so much from 2 lines of dialogue.
It's a hilarious line, and that is a great. I think there's a lot of lines like that in this movie that aren't even necessarily the really overtly funny things that are just kind of slipped in. Like, I really love when I think it's Randy Quaid who asks,
"What you doing in there, Mr. Munson?"
Barfing.
Barfing? Where do I keep getting Munson from?
and just that, it's just very matter of fact, very funny. I think for me and most people, the first thing that they remember when they think of this film is I think that is the most memorable image.
I mean, that's implanted. That gets implanted in your head.
That never leaves.
Yeah, whether you hate this film, you love this film, doesn't matter. It's here forever.
It stays with you.
But she's also in Dumb and Dumber. She's Mrs. Nudiberg or whatever.
Born. No. Born.
And in There's Something About Mary. The actress's name is Lynn Shay.
Yeah, very talented comedic actress.
She's in a lot of their films.
Yeah, and I like that. Some people may not like, but I like the consistency of a cast of characters. Mel Brooks did all that. Like, there was so many familiar faces on Mel Brooks films. Go ahead, argue it, but I like that from comedic, from someone you're going to expect. Oh, this is a good comedy film. This got this comedic team in it. I like that. Seth Rogen does
I agree with that completely. But the difference is Mel Brooks used really talented people, and that's one of my nitpicks of this movie. Is it's not Lin Shaye, because Lin Shaye is very funny, and she's committed to all of her roles, which you have to be in a comedy.
Yeah.
So she's great. But the 3 or 4 guys that the Farrelly brothers just always put in their movies, they're mostly very small roles in Kingpin. But I respect that as filmmakers ourselves. I love that, and I always want to put my friends in whatever projects I do, however big it gets. You have a little theme. You do this yourself. You very kindly put me in just about everything.
That's why
except for that last trash film that didn't have me. But
You chose not to.
So I
be in
love
film.
that.
You didn't want to come.
COVID chose. You son of a bitch. Make a film in the middle of a pandemic. I'm
a trailblazer, goddamn.
So I love that. But the Farrelly Brothers guys, most notably Brother Thomas, that young man shows up in a lot of films, and then even more notably the villain in this movie.
That's what I thought you were gonna say.
With the mascara and the eyeshadow, whatever. Like, that guy, he's just not a good actor. And I don't mean to be mean to him, but there's a reason his career didn't do much outside of the Farrelly Brothers. Like, he's just not very good. And so I wish that they would, because that could have been a really funny character too, in a small way. But that guy's really just, he's a little bit like Charles Rocket in Dumb and Dumber. The villain, just dialed up.
I'd say he's almost better. He's better than you. I never really thought about it until you forced me to think about how poor his performance really is in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
And you're right. And I hate to admit it. I hate to admit flaws in that film. But I don't think he's that bad, because I don't think he outkicks his coverage. Like, I don't think he tries to do too much. Personally, I don't think there's nowhere he's not really hamming it up for the sake of hamming it up, where I think you can point to a handful of times where Charles Rocket is like, "Don't forget your dinner plates on the left." Like, there's like, it's like, why you do? There's no need for that. Like, you're just.
Why did you drink 3 Red Bulls before every take, Charles Rocket? Like, no, maybe they're pretty similar level in my mind, but Charles Rocket, he might be a little bit more so. But that would just be one minor quibble where it's like, okay, I'm glad you get your friends in there, but maybe just cameos, not important performances.
Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind for my next film.
I am by far the best actor you've got in your roster, so
Wow.
you do that at your own peril. Just kidding, everybody is my friends.
Yeah, well,
you guys all do great too.
They all hate you now. Do you think the film is better for him not being in it?
Absolutely. I think that the fact that Everett's not here makes everyone better. Everett, as always, go f*** yourself, my friend.
You ready for my big one?
Oh, you have a big criticism?
Yeah.
Well, all right. Yeah, then we're going to argue about it.
I don't know how much we will. I'll be curious what you think.
Okay.
I feel like I'm going to get you here. I'm going to wear you down. This is going to be like one of those arguments where I just keep hammering you, and you'll just be like, "You're right, it's terrible." So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
I love so much about this movie. The thing that always turned me off a little bit, even when I was a kid, even when I first saw it, is I think that Randy Quaid is miscast. And I think that almost anyone but Randy Quaid should be playing this part, and that would make the film a lot better.
Before I answer that, quick trivia question. Do you know who was one of the original people that was going to be cast for this film? You know how there's like early suggestions?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how far along it got, but do you know one of the early...
I saw Chris Farley.
Chris Farley. Now, which, boy, do I want to see that film. How do you feel about that before I go into my defense of Randy Quaid? In only this manner, by the way. In only this very specific...
Let me defend Randy Quaid as a person and as a patriot.
China will own us.
Just this very unique, specific defense.
I like it because I literally want almost anyone but Randy Quaid in this role. So give me one of the better comedic talents of the last 30 years. That's awesome. It would obviously be a very different film, Chris Farley's so physical and loud, but I also think that Chris Farley, even in contrast a little bit to Belushi, who we talked about in the Ghostbusters episode, Chris Farley had some range and could play really sweet and naive. And if you go back and watch a film, everybody's favorite, Beverly Hills Ninja, I mean, Chris Farley plays that fish out of water, naivete, very sweet boy very well.
Yeah.
And so as I pictured that, I thought Chris Farley would probably do a really great job here. And certainly better than Randy Quaid. It's not even that Randy Quaid gives a bad performance. I just don't like his look, and I don't like his presence. I just think it's kind of a miss. And maybe that's because Woody and Bill Murray are doing such great things around him. But he's just awkward to me. The hair, the wig is bad. Like, I just don't like looking at his character, and there's nothing endearing to me about him. And that role needs to be really endearing, like a Chris Farley or someone, like I think Jim Carrey could have obviously played that role super well. And I think the film would be much better.
I don't think it would be much better. I hear what you're saying. I want to give you no credit, but I hear what you're saying. I don't agree. I think that's just how you feel about Randy Quaid. To say that he's miscast, I think is incorrect. This seems like a very, I don't want to say typical, but in his wheelhouse, he is zany. He's going to do crazy things, and this character does.
I don't know that he's that zany. Is he that zany in this movie?
Every comedic role, well, I mean, he gets a tattoo he works at a strip club, like as a stripper at some point. Like, he gets a tattoo of a naked woman.
That's probably the best he looks in this whole movie, to be honest.
He gets a big tattoo of a very large-breasted woman on his back after he's like, oh no, I shouldn't defile my body, and like turns around and is like, brr. Like,
I know, but that's not his performance isn't zany in that moment. That's a gag. That's zany.
He does crazy things. Like, throughout the whole film, he does. You're right. It could be what makes this character the best is what you're defining, and those moments are more few and far between because of what Randy Quaid brings to the role. I think, which is a little bit more outward and not the nuance of a sincere person, sort of on the inside. Like, he doesn't. I don't think that's what his talent is. I think his talent is more outward, Uncle Eddie type, crazy Uncle Eddie, Cousin Eddie. I don't know. Cousin. Yeah. He's more that type.
Yeah, he's kind of like unlike you, I don't much care for Randy Quaid. I'm not his biggest fan like you are, but
I'm not
on a personal and political level.
Jesus.
I'm not as worried about insulting him, but I just think like he's kind of gross. And he's kind of creepy, and he's not.
But are you saying that because
he's not a handsome or endearing man?
Sure,
per se.
He's not handsome.
So Cousin Eddie is a great role for him because Cousin Eddie's a creep and is weird. And Cousin Eddie's performance, particularly in Christmas Vacation, Randy Quaid's performance is fucking timeless. Like, that is really great stuff. And Randy Quaid has had a very successful dramatic career outside of these comedies.
I only know him for comedies. This role in
particular, I know, me too. It's so weird. He was like an actor for 15 years throughout the 70s and 80s, making like Academy Award nominated dramas that I haven't seen any of.
No, I know Caddyshack. I know Christmas Vacation. I know Kingpin.
Yeah,
I know
it's the vacation
not another
movies
teen
in Kingpin
movie.
for me.
I know,
and Independence Day.
Yeah,
he showed up in that. So like, but those are the roles I can see him in. Long-winded way of saying, like, this role needs to be very sweet and relatable and like virginal.
Yeah.
And I just you just look at him, like, I almost want someone to be a little younger. He's this tall, awkward, like hook-nosed, lanky presence with this shitty kind of creepy wig, and I just don't want that. I want like a sweet little boy that's like, and then that makes it funnier if you had Chris Farley as this sweet little cherubic boy who then is dancing and jiggling around on the stage. Like, that would be a lot better. That would be a lot better. Just say it, Keith.
You know what? You're right. And I don't like it. I don't like how you predicted the end of this. I don't like that.
Yeah, I get you.
But I can't I want to. Lord knows I want to. I can't disagree. I think the essence of that character, you are hitting the nail on the head of why this character is a funny character and a dynamic character. And you're right, he doesn't, like, Randy Quaid does a Randy Quaid version of that, which someone could have nailed it 100%. I'm not unhappy with what he did, with the result. I'll take the result because I love the film. I think it's wildly funny. And I think he is a nice third piece, even fourth piece. I like Vanessa Angel as well. You know, he's a good, C, B, or C in terms of talent. But everything you're saying is correct. And if we had a Chris Farrelly who would embody all of those things you're talking about better than Randy Quaid, you're right. You're right. I would probably like it even more. It might be now next to Dumb and Dumber, it'd be 1 and 2.
I like it a lot.
Do you have some, obviously in no specific order or whatever, because I'm putting you on the spot here, but in terms of comedic performances, comedic performances, do you have some ones that come to mind where you're like, wow, this is one of the funniest performances comedically I've ever seen? Do you have any sort of base for that?
Off the top of my head, I think of both the leads in The Big Lebowski, Jeff Bridges and John Goodman. I think those are two of the funniest, best characters and performances ever. I think Eddie Murphy in Trading Places specifically. I think he's really good, really, really good in that. And then after just our conversations, I'm inclined to think of Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber. And I think those are the 4 that pop up immediately on my radar.
I think Big Ern McCracken is the best character ever. I think that's Bill Murray's best role. I don't care about Lost in Translation. I don't care about any other film ever. I think that's his best role. I think it's one of the funniest roles, and I think one of the best characters ever. To play that, I think people emulate. There's so many other films that I think try to emulate what Big Ern McCracken is. Bill Murray is the perfect person to play that role, and he crushes it.
Claudia?
You two know each other?
It's a small world when you've got unbelievable tits, right?
Bill Murray's hair alone, just his hair, not even the rest of him. Like his hair, the epic arc of his hair is a joke in itself. It's so funny. I love it. Tell me I'm wrong.
Can't do it. Won't do it.
Good.
No, you're absolutely right. I think Big Ern should be considered right there with the Mount Rushmore of hilarious characters. I think that's the most, the most instantaneous thing is that. But the most memorable thing about this film is Bill Murray's performance, and he's just batting 1,000 the whole time. It's hilarious to watch. I know why he's not, and maybe he would overstay his welcome, maybe, but I doubt it. But I wish he was in the whole movie. I wish the whole movie was about Big Ern. Let's do a spin-off where it just follows
just a Big Ern story?
Yeah. He's so good and so slimy and so wonderful, and I'm just so glad he did this movie.
Why don't you go eat that outside and then come on back in? Hi.
Hello.
Not you. Hi.
Hi.
I'll give you one question though, because you bring up his hair, which is fucking hilarious. And when he's really going crazy and it's off to the side and it's all that, I'm a little disappointed. I noticed in this one that they kind of do that with Woody's hair in that same scene, and I wish they didn't. I wish that was just exclusively Ernie's gag.
Yeah.
I know maybe they're trying to make fun of just bowlers in general, poke a little fun at just these round-bellied, haggard dudes.
It's kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
But just let's keep it with Bill Murray.
I don't disagree. Because they set that up. I mean, this is the subtlety. Here we go. Get ready. The subtlety of this comedic talent. In the first scene where he loses his hand, one of the first lines Bill Murray has is, "You're going to pick up that 7-10 split the same day I'm going to start my hair starts falling out."
Yeah.
There's an arc to his fucking hair. Like that is not bullshit. Like there is a legitimate story within of a comedic joke that his hair embodies. And you're right. They should have just. He does have reminiscent. His hair does have the comb over and things like that. But I think they get caught up in trying to make Woody Harrelson's life look like shit, like because he's down on his luck.
Yeah.
So it sort of just cross-pollinates a little bit. I just think it's genius. I think there's an element of genius to a lot of these jokes that people don't give it credit for.
It's a tough world. These kids nearly got Munson, but they're back now.
Completely. His commitment to that character is phenomenal from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's just the juxtaposition of someone who clearly thinks that they're so cool, and his facade comes down and he's just so energetic and pumping his hips and the hair is just like blowing wider and wider. It's so funny. It's better than, but it's similar in energy to almost like Shooter McGavin.
Yes.
Where at the end when Shooter McGavin really goes crazy,
yeah.
and that's why what is his name? Christopher McDonald's performance as Shooter McGavin I think is up there because
it's up there too.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal.
But it's like because you watch him inside his brain, like when he goes Shooter, like he's really insecure and it's really bubbling up over. Like fuck you all, like he's really having a breakdown in there,
yeah.
and that makes for the funniest stuff.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
I'll give you another piece of trivia. His three strikes. Bill Murray's spoilers. Bill Murray hits 3 strikes to beat Woody Harrelson's character. That they did that one time, and he actually bowled 3 strikes.
No way.
Yeah, Bill Murray's actually a pretty
try?
good athlete. Like he loves, I think he just loves sports in general, and he's like not a terrible athlete. And from what I read, it was a long day of shooting, and they're like, all right, Bill, we got to get they had a whole crowd there, like, do a little something, kind of get the crowd going or whatever. And they let him, and they're like, all right, we're just gonna pull it, like we have strings that are gonna pull it, and they just let him go. And he did that whole thing, and one more time for me, sweetness. I say that every day, I think. One more time for me, sweetness. And he bowled 3 strikes, and that reaction from everybody is real. It's just a real moment where you can't believe he just bowled 3 strikes.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I did notice that there was a lot of real bowling going on, a lot with Bill Murray, because I was like, waiting to you see it from the back, and then I wait to see the cut, and it doesn't cut, and he just turns around. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. One
of my favorite gags, especially when I was 14 and saw this movie, is we don't have a cow, we have a bull.
I would say that's the most popular line. I think if anyone remembers anything, this and that line, I think of the top 2, because I remember that from the trailer. That's just insanely funny. I just remember that blowing my mind as well. Yeah. We have a bull though.
I'll brush my teeth.
I like to talk about the end of films always, and this film I think is no different. Where it's not a clear-cut victory. The guy you're rooting for loses. And I love that. I love that there's real cause and effect. It just makes the things that do happen have more weight. Like Randy Quaid getting the money to save his farm becomes the real victory for this film, for the audience. Like, oh, great, that's the honest part of the film. Munson doesn't win, but he wins enough. It's a little bittersweet. Like, the Farrelly Brothers do that all the time in their films, and this film, I think, sticks the landing of this film very, very well from a film standpoint. Like, stupid comedies just, everyone wins and everything's fine, and what we wanted to happen happened, and it's good movies, period. Comedies, dramas, whatever, sci-fi, doesn't matter. Have some stakes, have some emotional weight to things, and not everything's neat and tidy. And in this film, not everything's neat and tidy.
Yeah, 1995 Vanessa Angel is not a bad consolation prize when you look like Roy Munson. I think he came out pretty well.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. I'm always surprised that he loses at the end. I always expect him to win.
Yeah.
And so every time I watch it, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, he doesn't win, and that's crazy. But it makes for a better film, I would say. Vanessa Angel, just an interesting person. An interesting story, you know, like I tried to, because I remember her from this movie, and I try to remember, like, oh, what else was she in? She had such a familiar face. And I just think she was probably, you know, in a lot of commercials and stuff because she was a model. I didn't look this up, so we might cut this if this sounds really shitty, judgmental, chauvinist. But she seems a little more age appropriate to this film than maybe would be typical, where she's not some like 18-year-old. Like, she looks like she's in her 30s. Like, she's a beautiful woman, but she looks like a grown woman. And I think that that's rare in these types of movies. Even my girlfriend pointed out, was like, oh, it's nice that she's like an age-appropriate woman for these guys. And then I was surprised when I looked up her filmography that there wasn't much else.
Not much.
You know, like she's been working for 30 years, so she's probably like, fuck you, there's not much else. But I mean, like, you know, this was the biggest.
Yeah. She was
and
in
I kinda
Weird
think that's
Science,
weird.
the TV show, right? That's the only other thing I think I can name of hers off the top of my head.
I thought she was the original choice for Xena Warrior Princess, but had to drop out because she got sick. So that's a bummer for her.
Yeah, that was a
But
big hit.
yeah, strange, because I think she does a pretty good job. Like, she's totally solid, and is good. So I'm surprised she didn't have like a bigger career after this.
Likewise. I thought she does a really good job. You never know what happens in people's lives. You never know where journeys take people and how much of it is their own doing. You know, people kind of not getting a role or two that you think you're qualified for. Maybe, you know, Hollywood being dirty as always and just stepping away and saying, fuck it. You don't know.
Yeah, you got to run off to Africa. I get it.
Yeah,
See the old Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, pull a
You see behind that curtain, you might not like what you see. You got to get the fuck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see behind that curtain. I'm going to jump back there, take my shirt off. It's going to be great.
Hello, demons. Miss me?
You ever seen anything like this, baby?
To bring it full circle, I really am surprised, the more that I think about it, why this isn't a higher regarded comedic film. I'm not sure. I think, as again, I'm talking it out with you right now, it's probably a victim of the success around it. I feel like you alluded to it earlier. Because of Something About Mary and because of Dumb and Dumber, you know, those are such iconic films that this kind of gets just lost in the wayside a little bit. And I think that's unfair. You should go watch this film again and just laugh your head off. It's phenomenal.
I agree. I always appreciated it much more as an adult, like as I got older. When I watched it as a kid, I thought, oh, this is funny. There's some really funny parts. But I think because it's kind of darker and just certain elements to it, Randy Quaid obviously, I'm not personally attracted to, so I don't like that. but yeah, as I got older, I saw a lot more. Whoops, did I lose you? Can you hear me?
Closing thoughts? Anything else you want to say to the people out there while we have them?